I'd like to welcome back to the Southampton DELLivery podcast, Mike Smale, the guy behind and on camera, actually in front of the camera, doing all the stuff for MatchDayVlogs on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and at MatchVlogs on Twitter. You get it?
It's all in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right. Well, welcome to California again.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm enjoying the sunshine in January. It's not normally something that I can do, really. So
Yeah.
Great to be
Even
here.
in the shade, it's not. I don't have a jacket on.
Right, I didn't quite make it that far.
It's okay.
But it's still very summery.
Yeah, this is
In the
not normal
depths of
for you.
winter.
This is why it costs a lot to live here, which I think we used to celebrate, and I'm not sure we should celebrate that anymore.
Right.
It's probably pretty bad. But anyway, I hope you're enjoying your time.
It's great.
Thanks for coming to lunch and
It's fantastic.
hanging out. But yeah, so obviously we're talking today. It is a bit noisy. We have the street here, but it's LA, and that's what you get. So we'll just take it all in. It's part of the ambiance. Hopefully we don't have another fire truck.
We've had a few.
Yeah, and hopefully if it comes across, it'll at least be on the opposite side of the road,
Right.
so you get to see some excitement.
And they'll see it.
Yeah,
as
oh,
well,
yeah. So yeah, I mean, have you enjoyed your time in LA so far? I mean, you've been here a while.
It's
but
been great. Obviously, I'm not just here for this interview.
Sure.
On this, although absolutely would have flown out just for this interview, of course. But yeah, I'm just about in the time zone now, so I'm kind of waking up later in the morning, and of course, when I'm finally in the zone, then I'll be flying back home and try and switch it back the other way. Get the jet lag. But no, it's great to be here.
yeah, well, welcome, like I said. And this is not necessarily my neighborhood, but it's close enough. So I'm glad we can get together and do this. But let's talk a little bit. I think you've been on the show before. I know you have. I know you've been on the show before. But we talk a little bit about just the channel, and we've been talking for a couple hours now, just sitting here hanging out. But talk about the channel has grown since the last time you've been on.
It has. I think when we last spoke, it had about 50 subscribers on YouTube, and now we just passed 600. So I'd actually like to thank you for all the traffic that you brought my way and onto the channel. So thank you for that.
Well, I hope I've helped a little bit at least. But it's always good. Like, we have Saints fans kind of spread throughout the state and throughout the United States, but often the opportunity to sit down and talk one-to-one doesn't happen. And so when I found out you were going to be here, it was like we got to set it up and we got to do it. So I'm glad we could do it. And
Yeah, definitely.
it's nice to meet somebody else, not just that's a Saints fan, but also that's somebody that's putting out content and not putting out content, but just, it's got a hobby that's similar to mine and working on that stuff. So it's nice to sit down and talk about that and
Yeah, likewise.
and do that. So I guess from where we were the first time to now in terms of you, because you've been making vlogs aside from Saints vlog stuff for a long time.
Sure.
But it has just the football side of it. Have you learned anything new that you've maybe taken to your other channels, or has shooting the games and stuff like that kind of gotten easier for you since you started doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in terms of have I taken anything from the football vlogs into my other vlogs, I would say yes, because there's lots of things that happen that are unexpected in football that you tend to be able to plan ahead for and other things. But so yeah, and also I've changed a lot the way I do these episodes now, because another noise from the other side.
There it is.
I changed the way I do them, because I know that it's very apparent that when you're there to support the team, you don't want anything to get in the way of you supporting the team. You get involved in the atmosphere of the game. And so certainly with our new setup at the stadium, where in our seats I can set up a camera and just leave it running, there's a massive impact on doesn't have any impact on how I'm then supporting the team.
Yeah,
so
you just get to watch.
Exactly. I can spend a bit of time pre-game, getting a bit of the build-up, getting a cinematic B-roll for doing stuff like that, and then just really on to focus on enjoying and supporting the team during the game.
Yeah. That's a big difference, because I think sometimes even some of the criticism that comes to vlogs is that you're just live in the moment, just be there. And I know we talked about that with at home with my wife. It's like this obsession with taking pictures of everything and video recording everything, or doing it where it's like you just be there and do it. So if you can get kind of the best of both, if you can set the camera up and forget about it, then you do have a lot to go through, and sometimes you have an hour and a half of nothing,
Exactly.
But at the same time, you still have, you still enjoyed the moment for what it was, and if you are able to make something out of it in the end, then I guess you have that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about catching that moment that is the most important side of it, really, because, for fans that don't get to go to the games or that may live overseas or 5,000 miles away here in California, it's kind of nice to see that emotion, whether it be good, whether it be bad, but just actually see it for what it is.
Yeah. I think for me, watching them, you can kind of see the wave almost of it go around the stadium, and that's always, or you can see, you watch you kind of, your head drop or whatever if we make a mistake and concede a goal, and you can see the away fans off in the corner kind of going nuts, or the opposite and it's always great just to see the fans near the away fans that just don't even celebrate, just turn to the away fans just to give it to them, and I was like, that I enjoy that kind of stuff because it's just, that's the stuff that as a fan here you don't get to have a part of that.
No,
occasionally I have a text message with a Chelsea friend or something like that that even that is not, it's not the same.
No, it's not. And of course, some great moments in terms of the fan-to-fan banter that happens, especially in the Itchen North corner, and of course on the other side of the Northern. It's a lot goes on that corner of the ground, so it's nice to capture that. And likewise when it goes badly and they give out free scarves, and then the majority then end up on pitch side because they're all throwing them towards the pitch after their displeasure of seeing them lose to whoever it was at the time. So
well, that was a terrible performance all the way around.
Yes.
And at a very bad time. But we've come some way from that. Recently, I think the run since week 13, since the last international break, really has been it's been amazing, and it's not something that I would have thought was going to happen given how things were going early on in the season. It kind of looked like, I think there were a lot of us who thought we were kind of nailed on for relegation at that point. We were all searching for answers, and I think I was finally starting to come around to the point of like, it's the players are not good enough, and we've had this many managers who, maybe some of them weren't good enough either, but if Ralph can't do it with them, then they all need to go. And I guess I was wrong for a lot of it, or maybe we still do need players, and maybe the January transfer window is not the place to get them, but we can definitely improve. But it's been such a good run of form, and I think improvement all over the pitch. And I don't know, I mean, for you, when we were going through that kind of early run of games where we were looking pretty terrible, like, what was it like to shoot through all of that stuff? And did it get old, I guess, that kind of feeling of going to St. Mary's and not really expecting much?
Right. It was hard because whenever you're in a rut, you just can't see where the next points are going to come from. And the performances that we had against clubs that weren't anything special, I think probably hurt us the most. It certainly hurt me as a fan the most, is to see opposition sides come to St. Mary's being nothing special and going home with 3 points. Because they were just there for the taking. I'm talking about the Bournemouth game where we were awful. We were just there was no connection from our side. The connection play just wasn't there. It was an absolute mess. It was the same against West Ham, same against Everton, and those were games where we should have at least got a point from. Even if we played ugly, just to take something from the game, because there was nothing special out in front of us. And even for that Watford game, for the first 70 minutes it was pretty awful, and then the last 20 minutes to turn it around to get 2-1. I mean, maybe that was a transformation point in the season, but I mean, that's why I had that full-time reaction that I did, because it was just so, up to that point we'd accumulated 3 points at St. Mary's since our last win. And it was just like, I mean, that's how desperate it was. It was appalling.
And it's got to wear on you. I mean, you're driving in from a fairly lengthy distance away every match day, and to show up and just see us lose match after match, and know what it means to a team that's going to, as you just fall further and further down the table. Apparently it's closing time. It is not closing time. I'm leaving that in. I don't care. But just to see, I just kept looking at the table, going like we're down another place. We're down another place. We're now all of a sudden we're more than just a win away from getting out of the relegation zone, and that starts to get really worrying. And I think I Twitter, will make you think things are worse than they are when they are, and that's fine. But I started to get really worried there for a while, and I started like trying to find out if ESPN was going to carry the championship the next year, and it's like it's too early to worry about it, because now all of a sudden, like, I mean, we're talking after the Wolves match today, right now, but I mean, had we won, we would have been level on points with Wolves, and like
and Spurs.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's like it can change that fast, and it can go back the other way just as fast, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the turnaround has been, I mean, nothing short of amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're down there in those lower positions, back-to-back wins mean so much, and they can really carry you up the table. And for us to get, I mean, was it 4 wins out of 5 games? I mean, that was nothing short of incredible.
Yeah.
To see that kind of transformation. There are other clubs in the league that have also have a similar kind of success run with, Nigel Pearson at Watford. I mean, there's another side that have really turned it around in recent weeks and look very, very dangerous. So, but yeah, to think that these are the same players that we watched against Everton, that we watched against West Ham, that we watched against Bournemouth, it's something changed, something switched. It was a formation changed, and suddenly the players understood what they were doing. But
well, coming out of of course the 9-0 is always going to be there, and that it serves as a jumping off point for a lot of people, and maybe just a moment of clarity for the entire team to just go like, we're not good enough, and we have to be better moving forward. And it doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, the next 2 games after that were pretty poor as well, but I mean, since the coming out of the last international break, and it coincided with the move to this formation, this pretty consistent formation, the team's been great, and we've had times where was it Crystal Palace who kind of gifted us a goal, the bad back pass, and we've had brilliant strikes and set piece goals, and people have chipped in, and Ings has been incredible, and just all of that together kind of makes you go like, maybe we have enough to like get this done.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't want to get to the point where I'm maybe assuming or reaching too far. But at the same time, like, if we're not going to reach, then like what's the point? Like we should be ambitious, and we should be going for those. And if we wind up finishing 12th after being where we were at the beginning, and even still looking at the table and saying we were only a couple of mistakes away from being challenging for a European position, which I don't think any of us really felt like we probably shouldn't, given the start we had, but
mid-table was what I think lots of people were thinking this season.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were, and just right now it's like, I don't know, it feels like we've been on a pretty crazy roller coaster at a time when we're sitting with Disneyland just on the other side of the camera.
Right. Yeah, indeed. I mean, when you think back to like the 29th of November, we had like 9 points. And then over the Christmas period, we had such a great run. I mean, it was like 10 points over that Christmas period, and then it's strong thereafter. And here we are. What's the date today? Is it 17th, 18th?
It is the 18th.
It's the 18th, and we're here with, 28 points?
Yeah.
So, and I think Freddie put up on one of his blog posts that it was going to be, 3 wins from safety. And we really are at that stage now where, okay, that should be very achievable with the kind of fixtures we've got coming up. And, yeah, and who knows, had we won today, everyone would be talking about Europe.
Yeah.
Simple as. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if that'd be good or bad. Yeah,
it's true.
It's I do. When you think back to what some of those nights meant for a lot of the fans that had been, season ticket holders and things through, through the relegations and through like coming back up, and what it meant for those people to be able to go away to Europe and to celebrate that, even though we didn't do as well as we would have wanted. That counts for a lot, and it hasn't been nearly as bad the last couple of years. It hasn't been as bad as it was, but at the same time, for the fans that have sat through the St. Mary's kind of woes and things like that, to get back to that, and just to have them be able to grasp that, and again, I think would mean a lot to a lot of people. And that's something that I might not understand fully, because honestly, midweek games are hard for me to watch, so like it's kind of a pain. But like at the same time, I want the team to be there, and partially because I want my students to like be able to watch us on TV in the middle of the week in my room. But like at the same, like I want the fans to be able to go and have those nights in Europe, and for for St. Mary's to host those things, and I think that would mean a lot.
Yeah, I think one of the special results that we had when we were in Europe was that Inter Milan game at home, and that was a very special atmosphere at St. Mary's. That something that was quite something really.
Yeah.
And of course the away fixture. I didn't get to go to San Siro, but I can imagine for a lot of fans that have been lifelong supporters of the club, those are the kind of moments they want to see and be involved with. So.
Yeah. I guess for you this season, what stood out to you the most has been kind of the biggest difference from your perspective that when you talk about the turnaround that has happened? Has it been the formation? Has it been just the attitude of the players or the atmosphere around St. Mary's, or what's kind of stood out to you in terms of since that change has happened?
I think in terms of the change, you would say Danny Ings is obviously a massive part of what we've achieved this season already, but he's been strong throughout the season.
Yeah.
But I think it's players like Jack Stevens suddenly becoming a formidable force in defence. Okay, he's still very young, still got his faults, but he's really stood up, and we found our back four, so to speak, and to get that clean sheet that we did at Chelsea, I thought was a huge achievement. And that almost felt as good as the win itself.
Yeah.
Is to get that clean sheet, and again recently against Spurs as well.
Yeah.
So for me, the defence has had a big turnaround. I still think it's a very shallow squad in regards to the quality that we have. Had we had any kind of injuries whatsoever, I think it would be a very different picture to what we're seeing right now. But Ralph seems to have his favoured 11, which he didn't have at the beginning of the season. Every time we saw the team sheet, it was like, what's going to come up now? It's always something in there that was new, different. Whether it be Vestergaard in the back line, it was like, oh, okay, or Yoshida suddenly gets a starting spot again. It was very much a trial and error.
Yeah.
But it now appears to be, this is a formula that works, so this is what we want to go with.
Yeah, a formula and a formation, and Højbjerg's not showing up at left back anymore, and things like that. I think those things. It's when you look at what the manager was trying to do, he was desperately trying to find something that worked, and I think the frustrating part for us is if you would have asked a lot of fans like, what's the lineup? It probably doesn't include Jack Stevens,
right?
But a lot of the players that are there would have kind of looked the way it is right now, I think.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit frustrating that it took so long to find out. But you mentioned that how often the changes were. I stopped trying to predict the lineup. I stopped doing the predicted 11 because it's time consuming. And then you do it, and then you're off. You're not even close. Like, you just have. It was extremely frustrating, and I just said I'm not doing it until. And now there's almost no point because it's like we just slapped the same 11 people out there and put in this formation. So it's taken away an aspect of the newsletter, but it's allowed me to focus elsewhere. So it's okay, and it's working, which is I think is all that really matters to me.
But also another note on like the players that have changed and really turned up. I still think, I love watching the guy to bits, but Pierre-Emile Højbjerg hasn't really shown any great performances this season, where last season he was really an anchor for the squad, someone that would really grab the game by the scruff of the neck and get going with it. But he's a player that hasn't really quite come to the forefront just yet.
Yeah, you feel like he can, if he puts in some of the performances he put in last season and you put that into this squad, then where the different, maybe it's just the role that he's got to play this year is a little bit different, or maybe I'm not sure. But at the same time, James Ward-Prowse is playing miles better than he was last season, and he seems to have found a position that I didn't think he was strong enough to play. But I think they were saying he's played every minute of every competition this season. Has not, and that is, I can't play a whole Sunday League game. Never mind do this weekend. We got it, and to watch him and to look at the miles he's covering and the tackles he's putting in and everything else, he's kind of putting it all together. And everybody's talking about Danny Ings for England, and maybe Ward-Prowse is going to sneak his way in there too, but I don't know if that's deserved or what. But he's definitely shown, I think, a lot of us that doubted him at all that he's kind of got something about him that maybe he didn't always have, or maybe he's developed it, or maybe he just didn't show it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously the loss to Wolves is a little bit shocking, especially the way it kind of came about. I don't think either one of us got to watch the whole match because we were kind of busy doing stuff, but. You would have thought being 2-0 up at halftime and looked like we were cruising. I think had we put away one or two more chances, that game is out of reach and we're done. But Wolves are no joke, and they gave us some problems. It looked like Traore's always going to give us a couple of issues just with the pace, and he doesn't ever look smooth on the ball. He looks very clumsy and labored, but he gets it done, and he definitely put himself about, and Jimenez finishes well, and that is what Wolves do. And so frustrating to lose, to drop those points, but at the same time, like, you know, maybe another wake-up call that you just can't take your foot off the gas, and you have to keep playing. You have to play 90 minutes against these teams, and we just didn't quite do that, I don't think, this time.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, Wolves are a good side, and when they play well together, they're a very organised operation. But firstly, I'd like to say, you know, it was the first time I've covered or watched a Southampton game from 5,000 miles away, and to certainly get up at that kind of hour. Well, I was up anyway because of the jet lag, but it was very strange to watch a 3 o'clock kickoff at 7 a.m. in the morning, and then. And I saw up to the 70th minute. I managed to get a stream, and of course I saw us concede the 2 goals. I don't think. I mean, the first goal was pretty unavoidable. The penalty that was overruled by VAR, I still think that was a question mark, really, because to me it wasn't enough for it to overturn the referee's decision.
Right.
Because for me the ball had gone, and the 2 players were kind of came across and blocked it away. I mean, you look at that 2 ways, but the referee hasn't given it, and he didn't go to the pitch side screen to review it himself. So I think that was perhaps, I mean, it was his first Premier League game in charge. Maybe there's a little bit of a nerves thing going on there, but I don't think that was really something that should be overturned. And then the third goal, I understand from a few people saying that there was a handball in the run-up to it. So, you know, these are kind of turns of luck that unfortunately do happen in football, and had we put away some of those other chances in the first half, I mean, Shane Long hit the post with a header. You had Nathan Redmond hit the crossbar. You know, these are all tight margins, really, and it could have been so different. You know.
And if you take a few of those chances, and then even if the VAR decision goes against us like it did, and everything else, then you know, you can only control what you can control, right? You take your chances and you don't worry about the rest. But and we've been so lucky with VAR for the most part this season. You know, VAR's one of our own.
Yeah. We're gonna buy him in the summer.
Yeah, and it's, you know, you wonder about the referee and it being his first time. Like if there's a little bit of, well, if I argue with him here, am I going back to the championship next week? You know, or do I have to be the 4th official again, or whatever it is? Like, you know, and it's. I think I agree that if he gives the penalty straight away, I think maybe we complain a little bit, but you say that's football and that's how it goes. Right. But it's the fact that it was overturned for that, and it didn't look clear and obvious. Watching it kind of out of the corner of my eye as I was driving, which I've just admitted on the record, but I probably shouldn't have. But like, you know, it kind of looked like a penalty, but the referee had a clear view of it, and he said no, and so you want it to just be to go. And I think you look at the amount of stoppage time we had in the second half, it was 6 minutes or something like that. Like that's all down to VAR decisions that took forever to be, you know, and it was fine for me. But it's the people in the stadium that while you're waiting for that, like
confusion and not knowing that. I mean, with VAR, I mean, we've been lucky with VAR, but in the same respect, we've had a lot of things that have been quite cruel on us on VAR. I mean, today would be one, but also that red card against Bertrand in that Leicester game. I mean, that changed it massively, because we just conceded a goal and then we'd had our left back sent off. Yeah. So it was like, right, you know, what now? So. It's a very, very tough. There's a lot of talk about VAR going on in the UK, as I'm sure you pick up over here. And what really frustrates me is the fact that a lot of the pundits are talking about things that aren't subjective. That, you know, the fact that he's only off by a millimetre. Yeah. Well, we had a goal line decision in the Watford Spurs game earlier today that was, okay, well, it was literally a millimetre before going over the line. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't have a goal line technology which is down to a millimetre, and then an offside decision down to a millimetre. You know, you've got to have it for both, otherwise it doesn't work.
So you were up at 4:30 a.m.
I'm not sleeping well. I saw the second half.
Yeah,
I saw the second half.
That's Yeah, 4:30 a.m. is what time that game kicked off. I was getting ready. I was not watching the game. But it's and I guess to ask you, I mean, what's it been like? Or step away from the match. What was it like to have a game on like that and like be on that schedule? Because you're so used to kind of your match day routine and things of going down to the stadium, or even if it's one of the later games in or if you're in another European country because you're working, like it's generally a little bit later, not earlier. And so, what was it like to kind of have that?
It's very strange, and I think today, because I'm here on work purposes, to try and not get overly distracted by the football itself on something like that. But it was very strange because I was watching the game from 7 a.m. and then I had a presentation to do, and I literally had it on my iPad on top of my laptop and notebook as I walked into the boardroom, and there was kind of full with the CEO of the company and other people, and literally just shut the iPad as I walked in right when it was at 2-2.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like I then had the agony of doing what I needed to do with the back of my mind, thinking, okay, what's going to happen in the last 20 minutes? We just brought Gianeppo on and Shea Adams, so we're going to get a winner, or we're going to concede a third. It was that was pretty tough.
Yeah, it's not always the best.
No,
but
you have my sympathies. This is hard to do.
Luckily, I don't always have to go to work on Saturdays, but it's the midweek games that are I can catch 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and then then the kids are definitely looking at their phones and laughing at me as I'm trying to be professional, and sometimes I just crack and I'll put it on the corner of my screen and call it good, but it's okay. So
you'll be in a bad mood.
Yeah,
if it's a bad result. Yeah.
Well, the Leicester City game was a Friday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like they were having a go.
That's
like the kids were telling me to switch teams. And I was like, it doesn't work like that, kids. You can't do that. Like it's not allowed. And by the way, I'm in a little deep at this moment. Yeah.
I'm a little invested in the project.
Yeah. So it's not how it works, but thanks. I imagine. I mean, when I went over and was in the UK, it was equally weird to not have to wake up and have the game on right away and just have it be dark when it was over, and like that all are strange things. So it's I'll take this any day.
Because, sure.
The rest of my day in sunny Southern California.
Absolutely.
It was cold this morning. I would say it was like 2 degrees.
Chilly. Yeah.
So, but now I'm not wearing a jacket, so it's nice. I don't know. I just want to say, first of all, thanks for doing this again.
No worries.
I've had a wonderful conversation. It's always great to do this and spend a little bit of time. We're good. Do you know his name?
Sorry?
Do you know his name?
No. I forgot it. Should we include him in the episode?
We should. At least let's see if his name is on here. Tucker.
Tucker was our server today.
We gave him we told him just to choose, right?
Yeah, we did.
We gave him a couple of choices to just surprise us. And he made good recommendation.
Yeah, I was certainly happy. I mean, I understand he's off to Washington. He was telling us after this shift today.
It will be much colder. Yeah. They will not have outdoor seating in January. I can promise you. But he's been good. I feel bad because he keeps checking on us, and we're like, nope, we're good. We're just going to keep hanging out. Anyway, whatever. I mean, for Saints kind of going forward, getting back to the team, like, what do you think, what realistically, like, given we've had the poorest of runs and maybe third best team in the league since week 13, right? Like coming into, or maybe even including today. I haven't checked since we've been here, but we've been informed. What do you like? Which of those two teams is the real Southampton, or are we somewhere in the middle?
I think we're perhaps somewhere in the middle. I think in terms of the quality's clearly been there. It's just been the structure and the formation. So you've got to give a certain amount of blame and credit to Hasenhüttl in that regard, in terms of it's taken him this long to figure out what he should be doing with those players. But yeah, I mean, if we end the table around 12th, like you said earlier, I think a lot of Saints fans would be, quite content with that. Yeah. With the run of form that we've had, a lot of people were talking about Europe and pushing for those places, which would be great as well. But there's a lot of good sides around this part of the table, but there are also a lot of inconsistent sides like Arsenal and Spurs and the likes. So yeah, it's
well, and I think that's there are a lot of good players and a lot of good teams. But there are reasons that some of those players and teams aren't. They don't consistently hit the top of the table. Liverpool has been so good this season, not because they've always been great, but because they have consistently done just enough in some instances and dominated on others. But even when they play poorly, they have been able to get wins, right?
Get result.
And we don't do that enough. And I think the consistency is what will haunt us, because we always wonder why aren't we more consistent? Like, it doesn't seem that hard to just go out and do the same thing, but then I listen to the podcast and I'm like, well, that wasn't very consistent. Like it goes up and down as well. So it's still, though, when I think about it, it's hard to understand like why it just doesn't work itself out to be like that more often. So it'll be interesting to watch. And I wonder, though, also, and this is coming out of nowhere, but if we were to finish in a European place, does that make Hasenhüttl more or less likely to stay? Like, does that bring more teams kind of calling for him over the summer? And does he look at the squad and say, it's not enough? The owner is on this kind of self-improvement model where we have to, self-sustaining model, I should say.
So we've got a Koeman situation all over again.
Yeah. Or does he go like, no, I can do it with this squad, and we only need a couple of pieces? You just kind of wonder, like, we will always have things to worry about and complain about, whether it's relegation and he stays or Europa League and he stays. Like, what's going to happen? And so I think it's always going to be there, and there's always something for us to worry about or complain about or whatever. But right now, I would say that, I think I said it in the newsletter this week, I've just really enjoyed it recently. It's been hard to not enjoy the run we've been on and the way we've been playing, and I think you'll agree that it's just been nice to see the team be successful.
100%. And I think also seeing the result against Leicester, where we ended up being first on Match of the Day on our own merit, not because we beat Leicester or is anything romantic about the return fixture after being defeated 9-0. We dominated that game. I mean, you look at the stats, we absolutely dominated that.
Yeah.
So, they were lucky still to be in it. So it's things like that fill a Saints fan with pride.
Right.
But then, like what you say, if we do too well, do we have to worry about losing the manager or, losing key players? It's an alarm bell for any Saints fan to know that it's never ever going to get any better, in terms of that fear of what if. But
I would say for anybody listening, the key player is Cedric. But he's already off he's off this summer anyways. It doesn't matter unless somebody wants him right now.
Yeah, we'll take offers for Cedric.
Yeah,
but,
I'd probably be willing to play somebody out of position at right back for the rest of the season if it meant that we got money for Cedric. But that's not going to happen. But I mean, he was back, I think. Going back to the Wolves game, he seemed to be back to his old ways a little bit today. He put in a great cross for the goal for Long.
Right.
Did some good things, but defensively we have issues popping up again. And maybe it was just a kind of convenient run of matches where we didn't get exposed or opponents didn't take chances even when they're there. But today, when we allowed the other team to have the ball a little further up the pitch and we weren't winning it in their half, we got into trouble. And I think that's back to the old Saints. I think that's the real thing is if we don't dictate play and keep it at a certain way, if we start to take our foot off the gas, we can get exposed. And I don't think that's anything to do with anything. I think that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the run of bad games that we had for the turnaround, I think the fullback positions were something that I could see. Like, we needed to strengthen there, and actually Hasenhüttl did publicly say, this is an area where I'd like to strengthen. And really from that moment, Cedric has stepped up, Bertrand's been playing a lot better. But I think, with today's result, perhaps that might be a little bit of a wake-up call to say, actually, we do need a bit more competition in those areas. Jan Valery could be coming back soon, so we'll see about that. But yeah, I still think those areas are ones that we need to look at, especially for the sort of football that Hasenhüttl wants to play, that high-pressing football, where there's a lot of running involved, especially for those positions.
Yeah. So. Well, one of the things that Hasenhüttl said in his press conference on Thursday was that the mood kind of shifted around signing players, and we shouldn't just sign players because we can, even if there are players that are out there that might, we don't just need to do it because we can, and it's, I don't know, they're not saying hi to us, I don't think.
They're not. It's not our party.
I don't know.
I don't think they're Wolves fans.
No, they're not. But it went from, we're definitely looking to improve these areas to, well, if we can, or if they're the right player, and the language is starting to go towards, oh, these deals are not coming, and I do worry a little bit, because I think, we're one injury away in the wide defensive areas from being in a real world of hurt, and having to see guys like Danzo or Yoshida or whoever play out there, and the last thing I want to do is break up our midfield partnership to move out there, and so there are worries there for us, but at the end of the day, I don't think the club's gonna panic buy in January, because Carrillo being the biggest thing that doesn't work, and there were a couple of articles in the Athletic about the money you spend in January and how many points it gets you, and it's not very many. So maybe it's not the thing, but it just the team may have to do something to improve, and whether they will or not, I don't have an answer, but we'll wait and see. But I don't know, when are you back at St. Mary's?
I'm back at St. Mary's. I managed to convince the family to go to the FA Cup game next Saturday.
Okay.
So but back there for that one.
Okay.
So
what are you anticipating in terms of a squad? Do you think heavily rotated?
I'm not sure, actually. I mean, I think it depends what happens on Wednesday night. I think it's Wednesday night we're playing Palace away, I think
Tuesday or Wednesday?
Tuesday, Wednesday, something midweek. But, Spurs kind of look like a side on the ropes, really. I mean, without Kane at the front there. We were in control a lot that game, that we beat them at St. Mary's 1-0, so I think it's certainly possible to do. They're not particularly good away, so why not? But whether or not Hasenhüttl feels that he should be rotating the squad, because I think the following weekend we're at Anfield, I think. So we've got a week to prepare for that. But
well, and I mean, realistically, what are you going to prepare for that? Like, Liverpool are good, although I think if we beat Liverpool, that would just be
absolutely.
Liverpool and Leicester, we're good. I think Saints fans will appreciate it.
Absolutely. If we were to take their unbeaten run away from them, I think that would be our Premier League title right there.
Because if they go unbeaten, and so that's all the Arsenal fans are upset forever.
Right.
And that's the Liverpool fans are already almost intolerable. So
the
fact that that'll just continue will be awful. But anyway, well, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's pretty much covers it from me.
Okay, well, Mike, thank you so much again for doing this. It was kind of it was a lot of fun, and it was I didn't want to bombard you with questions because I knew you were working, but it was I'm going to show up and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And we got away from the guys handing out tickets to I don't know what on the corner, but we didn't go.
Free CDs, I think it was.
Free, okay.
I'm making inverted commas just in case the listeners can't see my hands there.
Yeah. But, I'm just glad we didn't get whatever it was. But people can follow you once again on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, MatchDayVlogs, and on Twitter at MatchVlogs.
That's right, yeah.
And the YouTube channel, link in the show notes. Thanks a lot, man.
Absolutely. And also a big thank you for you for making the drive down. I certainly appreciate it. I mean, it's not 5,000 miles in the sky, but it's certainly, 4 hours on the road that I certainly appreciate. So thanks for joining me.
It was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Yes, good. Right, one last thing before we go. Hang on.
Yeah.
Back over to you, Matt.
So, I don't often get to see people, but let me rephrase that. I do get to see people. I don't often get to see other Saints fans face to face. And the Premier League in USA sent me a box of some things that they asked me to hand out to other Saints fans as I see them. I'm fairly certain they meant to see other US Saints fans, but this is your Premier League in USA scarf that you get as other than Dave Lee, who is a patron of the show. You're really the first real life Saints fan that I've gotten to see since I've gotten this. So that's yours. I hope you enjoy that. It's not warm enough or cold enough to use here.
Oh, I don't know. It's been quite cold here.
In the morning, I guess it'll be fine. But that's for you. Hopefully you have room in your bag for that, and that'll help you sync it up. So. Thank you.
Always good to have an audio clap for the audio. Yeah, that's perfect. Oh, thanks very much. That's a USA scarf, is it?
Well, it's a Premier League and USA scarf. So they've partnered with a company here to try to help grow the Premier League, and I have a box of these that I'm to hand out across the US as I go on my travels. So this is stop number 1.
This is coming with me to St Mary's next Saturday.
All right.
We'll have this up and we'll include it in the show there. That's really cool. Thank you for that.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Excellent. God, I'm a little bit emotional.
No. Let's go.
Right, as always, like, comment, share and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. Alright, and it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Matt.
See ya.
Alright, cheers everyone. See you later. See ya.